Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and devoted homemaker. Join me on this journey as we explore the beauty of slow and simple living, where life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. I'll take you through my experiences of slowing down, tending to our allotment plot, finding joy in the little things and making the most of our small home. Together we'll learn to live in harmony with the ever-changing seasons, discovering the magic that lies in embracing the present moment. So let's embark on this enriching adventure towards a more intentional and fulfilling life. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy and I am so grateful to have you here today. Today I want to talk to you about something that I'm so excited about, and that is how to prep your balcony or small patio space for growing. And this will also apply to smallish gardens as well, I guess, because I have been a balcony gardener now for 8 years. Is this my 8th season or my 9th season? I have no way of knowing. Let me just do a count. Okay, so I'm about to go into my 8th season of growing on my balcony. And over the years, I have started small, gone full scale, scaled it back a little bit. And this year I've got new plans for the space. So for those of you who don't know, I have lived in my split level flat, which is a small 2-bedroom flat where we have a living room, kitchen, hallway downstairs, and then upstairs we have our 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, just like a little house, but just in a block. We have a balcony off of our living room and kitchen, and it's a decent size. It's about 1 meter by 3 or 4 meters, can't quite remember. It's a decent size and it does the job, and for many years it was the only way that it did the job. 2 years ago we got our allotment and we have been growing there, figuring it out, and that is always a work in progress. Everything is always a work in progress. We are always learning and growing along the way, but I thought ahead of growing season I would love to talk to you guys about growing in a small space, because my allotment is a decent size. I have half a plot and it is more than enough. I often, when I first got it, I was like, oh no, I'm going to get a full plot when I can, and actually no, I'm not going to get a full plot. Certainly not for many years yet. The half a plot is plenty big enough on our allotments. So this episode is all about balconies, small gardens, patio spaces, anywhere you have that you can start growing in. So whether you have been, I don't know, maybe you've been dabbling with growing in a small space. Maybe you've been dabbling growing on your balcony or in your garden, or maybe doing some containers on a patio. Whatever that looks like for you, I want to help inspire you and encourage you to just go bigger and better, and just show you that it doesn't matter what kind of space you have. You have space to have a thriving little garden. So let's do it. Let's figure out how to firstly prep your garden or your balcony, and then figure out how you are going to just embrace this growing season. I'm going to share practical tips, creative ideas, things that worked for me, things that didn't work for me, and just how you can create the garden you dream of in a small space. So let's roll straight into it. Let's get going. Are you looking for a delicious way to live a more sustainable and mindful life? Look no further, because I've got something special just for you. Introducing Riverford Organic, your gateway to fresh organic fruit and vegetable boxes delivered right to your doorstep. When you choose Riverford, you're not just eating organic, you're supporting an ethical business that believes in food that's good for the planet and your well-being. Eating organic means you're savouring food grown with care, free from harmful chemicals and absolutely bursting with flavour. By choosing Riverford, you're supporting a business that is committed to sustainability, is employee-owned and passionate about reducing food waste. Embrace the seasons with a rotating variety of fruits and vegetables. Fresh, local and in harmony with nature. Riverford has been a game changer for our family, and I think it could be for yours too. There is nothing more exciting for me than grabbing my Riverford box off my doorstep on delivery day. But there's more. As a treat for you guys, you can enjoy a £15 credit towards your second order. Simply sign up at theslowlivingcollective.com/Riverford to claim your credit and start your journey towards healthier, ethical and more seasonal eating. So I think the most important thing to start with when you are looking at either a balcony, a patio or a small garden space is just assessing the space you have. It's really, really important to understand what your space looks like. And by that I mean, how are you going to grow in it? What does it look like? Does it flood? Does it have a lot of sunlight? What direction are you facing? Do you get a lot of wind? What available space do you have to maximize your potential in your garden? How can you potentially maybe add some features so you are better able to embrace in gardening vertically, because you will be able to therefore do more? So much to think about when assessing your space. And when I first had my balcony, one of the first things I wanted to do was make it look pretty. And at the time, this was 8 years ago, it was like one of the first things I did in my entire home. So I actually redid the outside of my home first, which is so funny to me. But I wanted to do things like I wanted to have like a patio section and a garden section, and then I wanted to, I've got like the balcony surround is like a black metal, just metal. It's got holes in it. Actually, I found that the holes are perfectly positioned that I can hang hanging pots through them. So they're perfect, absolutely perfect. But what I did at the time was I laid some fake grass. Now that wouldn't necessarily be my choice these days, and that grass has unfortunately gone to landfill, but I didn't want the chemicals and the nastiness of it around me. It's one of those things, isn't it? You've made a decision, you've purchased something, and you know it's not good to have around, but you know that it's just going to end up in landfill, and all you can do is not make that same mistake again. So that has gone into landfill, and I've actually got some better flooring on the ground out there now. But at the time we had this fake grass, and then we had these wooden like clipped together slats, and it was lovely out there. I put some natural weed wrap around the inside of the balcony, on the sort of like the barrier, the actual balcony edge, and just to make it a little bit more private. And what I've done over time is I've also extended the balcony slightly upwards by using some wooden trellis and attaching that. I have the benefit that my house, or the outside of my house, is having a renovation work done at the moment, so I had to actually deconstruct the entire balcony, so that contractors can easily access the balcony. So I'm gonna have to do my balcony from scratch. Not really, because I still have all the stuff for it, but just some different ideas. That balcony has been in place for a while. Not the balcony itself, obviously, the decorations and stuff. But I have found over the years ways in which to maximise the space on my balcony. So I use a lot of hanging pots. I can hang them over on the outside. I can also hang them on the inside. Like I said, there are like little square holes in my balcony, on the balcony surround, that fit pots in it perfectly. I can usually fit about 3 to 4 high, which if I really wanted to stack would mean I would have a lot of space to grow on. I don't cover the whole balcony because I like to have a little bit of space for us to put like chairs out for the kids to play on. We actually secure the balcony in many different ways. We also have an indoor cat, and she loves to be out on the balcony in the summer as well. So we have some netting to secure on the balcony when we're out there, and that just helps us feel that we're all a little safer. We obviously, when anybody's out there, they're always with an adult, but it just makes everything just feel a little safer for us. So the first thing to do is definitely assess your space. We have a south facing balcony, and so it gets very, very warm, but also in the event of a storm, because we are almost at the top of our block, we're only a small block, but we are one of the higher ones, and so we do live on top of a hill, with a big valley around us on all sides. So we are on the end of the block as well. So wind is definitely a factor for us. But yeah, it's been an amazing space for us. I have grown all sorts of things on the balcony. I have grown things that you wouldn't even expect. I first started doing things like peppers and tomatoes and strawberries. They were my first year. I have grown all kinds of salads up there. I have grown lettuces and cucumbers, tomatoes. I've done peppers. I've done herb garden. I've done an abundance of strawberries. I've done carrots, if you can believe. I've grown carrots in a container. Haven't done potatoes up there, but I think you could easily do potatoes in an area like that. Maybe I'll try it this year, I have also done radishes and beetroot. I did leek. I've done, what else have I done? All kinds of varieties of peppers, actually. Going back to peppers, I did banana peppers, chili peppers. I've done sweet peppers. I've even grown beans up a trellis on the balcony. If you have the space, there is little that you can't try. I guess my first piece of advice would really be, if you want to try it, give it a go. The worst thing that can happen is that it won't work and you won't do it again. But yeah, I have tried as much as I have ever been interested in doing, and it works amazing. So the first thing that I did when I started to grow a little more seriously out there was I purchased one of those small zip-up greenhouses. Now, I know they don't get a great rap, but they are absolutely perfect for balconies, and this is why. One of the problems with those zip-up greenhouses is that it's very difficult to weigh them down. It's very difficult to attach them to anything, and the wind gets underneath them and sort of sends them airborne. But on my balcony, I have found that I am able to firstly tie it down. I can tie the bottom of the greenhouse to the edge of the balcony surround. So firstly, that works really well. Secondly, I was able to tie a piece of string from one side of the balcony surround at the top and bring the string around the front of the greenhouse and then tie it the other side. That means it's actually secured at both the top and the bottom. I also do tend to weight the bottom bars down. You can do that very, very easily by just filling up some old plastic bottles if you've got them. We actually had a couple of like fizzy water bottles that had been used. We don't generally buy much, things in plastic bottles like that, but we did have a couple, and so I just fill them up with water from the tap, and that weights it down very, very nicely. I also had some old like exercise weights. I don't think they were particularly heavy, a 1 kilo maybe, and I don't use them, so we have a different set of weights that we use at home, so I just used them balancing on the bottom bar. It's perfect. It never even moved, and yeah, like I say, it does get pretty windy up here in a storm, so I would definitely recommend, if you have a balcony particularly, using something like one of those little zip-up greenhouses is just perfect, because you really do have the ability to weight it down, tie it down, something that is not necessarily as easy in the garden. And then you have the perfect spot then to put your little seedlings in and protect some of your sort of more tender plants. And yeah, it's always just worked super well for me, and I love that. So I definitely recommend that if you're on a balcony. Next, I suppose, is containers. ultimately what you're doing on a balcony is container gardening, and so there is so much you can look up online, figure out different strategies for container gardening in small spaces. It depends on what your space looks like. You might be able to use hanging planters, you might be able to create some sort of vertical garden, you might just find these like great container options that will suit your balcony, firstly your aesthetics, but also the needs of what you're going to do to plant. For me, I don't have anything, sort of no wall that I can attach to, so it is important that I am able to just use, I guess hanging pots works well for me, and by that I don't mean like hanging baskets, I mean like the pots that have, you know, the curved grabbers, I don't really know what you would call them, hooks, I'm not really sure. I always use the brand Elho. Is that how you pronounce it? ELHO. I think they have a great amount of different options when it comes to planters. And there's tons and tons of different options, indoor and outdoor. Their outdoor stuff that I have, I'm going to see if I'm just having a quick look to see if there's anything, or if mine are on there that I recommend. I'm just looking, they do so many different planters, lots of ones that sort of hang over the edges of whether it be decks or balconies. You've got like support shelves, brackets. Okay, the one I have is called, if you go to the Elho website, it's elho.com, and look in their outdoor collection. I have the Corsica Easy Hanger Single and the Corsica Easy Hanger Trio. The single pot it says price from $9.79, and the trio is from $15.69. I have had them for many years. They also do these, they're a little more expensive, but now I'm looking, I'm like, these are amazing. They do like, one's called Corsica Vertical Forest Large, and it looks like it's like a couple of pots. My mum also, she used to have these on her deck. She doesn't have them now. It's called a Corsica Flower Bridge, and it's basically like a regular pot, but it has a ridge up in the middle of the pot, and you can put that over the edge. I would probably not do that on my balcony because I feel like if it plummeted, that would be no good. The hanging ones are better, but there are some great options on here. There's another one here that I can see. It's called Green Basics Easy Hanger Large. Maybe I might treat myself to a couple of bits this year, see what we can do. But yeah, there's lots of different options, and that's just one brand. That's just the brand that I've always used because my local garden centre stocks those. They do wall racks and all sorts, and I'm sure you can find so many different options. If you go to your local garden centre, look online, it's just a brand that I really like. I need to stop looking because I'm going to get distracted from this episode and then I'm just going to end up ordering a load of pots that I don't know that I need. So choosing the right containers is super important though, and what I found with those trio pots is that I am able to stack those, like I said, up my balcony surround because I have the right holes to suit it. You'll need to analyse what your space is like and what would work best for you. But from what I have gathered when I've been looking around at planters is there are various options and you should be able to find something that works for you. Now, another thing to consider when you're going to be doing balcony gardening or gardening in a small space is figuring out what plants are going to be suitable. Now, I say this with like a little bit tentative because I am of the assumption with gardening in general in that I'm just going to give it a go. I'm not necessarily going to follow the instructions and we'll just see where we end up. I rarely follow what the seed packet tells me other than when things can be planted. That is about my limit on following a seed packet. If it says it can be planted between May and June, then I will do that. If it says it needs to be planted at 2 centimetres deep, at a 3 centimetre gap, in a row. Like, you lost me, I'm afraid. I'm not here to make measurements. I'm here to do guesswork and have fun. So things don't generally fail, so I haven't messed it up too much yet. Things of course fail, but largely not a whole crop, so therefore I don't think that I'm doing anything particularly wrong. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I think that is the key to it all. Just figuring out what works best for you, and some things work, some things don't. But yeah, selecting suitable plants, there are an amazing abundance of stuff that you can find that will thrive in confined spaces. But my general thoughts are, give it a try. If you want to grow it, give it a try. You might, if you really, really want to grow beetroot on your balcony, give it a whirl. Are you going to get beetroot the same size as you would get in the ground? Probably not. But if you treat them well, you will get beetroot. You're not going to get a crop of like 100 because you're not going to have the space for it. But maybe you're going to get 6, and that's better than none. So while I definitely advocate for grabbing stuff that is suitable for your space, I also really encourage you to just give it a try. Give a try what you want to do, and I think you'll be surprised at what you can grow on a balcony, or in a small garden even. Also, like, you're going to need to think about, I know we already discussed this, but think about sunlight and wind and things like that. So for me, with a south-facing balcony, it gets very, very warm. So things that like a bit of shade are not going to find shade on my balcony. It is relentless up there in the heat of the summer. But things like peppers and cucumbers and tomatoes that absolutely thrive in those conditions do amazing. So it's just about finding what works for you and going from there. Back to containers though, there is so many different options. I love to do tumbling varieties of things, tumbling tomatoes, and doing like a hanging basket or something like that. I like the look and aesthetic as well of like just a balcony full of greenery, and I didn't quite achieve that last year, and but it's something I've done in previous years, so something I'm going to work on. I know when I finish this episode, the first thing I'm doing is making a list of all the pots that I want to buy to see if I can achieve that. Other than that, I would definitely recommend figuring out soil and composting. That's really difficult to compost on a balcony, but it is not impossible. So you would just have to look up some composting techniques for balcony gardens, and just figure out how that works for you. For me, what I tend to do is I actually just compost everything in our compost heaps at the allotment, because that is just easy for me. I purchase peat-free compost from the garden centre, take a bag up to the balcony and just go from there with it. I always tend to get rid of last year's compost from the pots, give them as much of a clean as I can possibly do. I don't ever go into anything deep like scrubbing them and washing them inside. Just give them a bash out and a wipe round, and that's about it. Because up on the balcony is like its own ecosystem, completely detached from anything else, it's not, I don't really have to worry too much about disease and pest control and things like that on the balcony. It was one of like the biggest baptism of fires, I think, for me when I got the allotment, and I'm suddenly dealing with like slugs and snails and all of these pests that are intent on eating my food, which is, I don't get that up on the balcony, and no snail can be bothered to walk up as far as I am. No way. And I'm only a small block, so my balcony's actually on the 3rd floor, so to be honest, if you're in anything higher than that, you don't need to worry about slugs and snails. They're not climbing up. Like, imagine how long it takes the poor little dudes. I've once found a snail on my balcony, and I was like, goodness me. I let him stay based on the fact that he'd probably walked for days. He never even touched anything, and poor little fellow's probably gone now. But So just figure out what's going to work up in terms of composting. Obviously, if you're in a garden, you can, if you have direct access to the soil in the garden and it's not just a concrete garden, you can put a compost heap down on that. There are some very affordable options to create your own compost heap. You can be as simple as throwing a few pallets together. You can have compost containers which you can buy from like garden centres or Amazon or whatever works. I think if you can have access to the bare ground to compost, that is preferable over anything else. Having like the worms in your soil is perfect. So much so that at the allotment, like if we find a worm out of place, we generally take him to the compost heap. So if you have bare ground, definitely utilise it to make your own compost heap. If it's in your own garden, you can chuck your scraps in there and everything. We always chuck our scraps and stuff down to the allotment. Coffee grounds are great, eggshells are great, all of these things that really sort of nourish the soil. Obviously on a balcony or in a patio that's a little more difficult. On a patio garden you could have a very small scale compost heap, maybe pull a stone up and have access to the ground. There are lots of options. But if you have access to the soil, then obviously composting is ideal. In terms of watering, you can get watering systems, you can get self-watering containers, you can I don't do any of that on my balcony, but I do I just go out and water. That's probably about my limit for the balcony. I have different protocols and procedures at the allotment, but there are things you can do for that. But ultimately, I think just get creative with some vertical gardening solutions, because there is a lot you can do upwards. And I say this a lot when I am talking about living in a small space as well. It's not just about, we often just think about floor space. It's not just about floor space, it's what you can do vertically as well. And the same applies for gardening. So maybe look at trellises or hanging gardens or wall-mounted planters if that's possible. And you can maximise your growing space without sacrificing floor space. And therefore, you're going to be able to use floor space and vertical space. You're going to be able to grow a lot more than you maybe first anticipated. And this is also important. It might not seem important, but your aesthetics for your balcony. So the visual appeal of your balcony garden is also important. So something we did was we laid tiles down. It just makes it easier on everyone. It's not as sort of awful as the fake grass. It looks nice. It looks very clean and fresh out there. The containers we have are nice. And I do want to see if maybe this year we can add a bit more beautiful visuals out there. Not quite sure what yet, but I'm gonna figure something out. Don't know what, but I am going to figure something out and just make it look better. I need to wait for all the building work to be done, and then I can have a little go, see what's going to work best. I hope this episode has been helpful. I have created a free balcony gardening guide. This is suitable for whether you have a balcony garden, a small garden at home, or maybe a patio garden or a courtyard type garden. It is going to be just full of tips and tricks and ideas and ways that you can really level up your balcony or small garden space and just turn it into a flourishing urban garden. So whether you're a novice or a seasoned gardener, I hope this free guide is going to help you. You can download it from theslowlivingcollective.com/balcony guide. That's theslowlivingcollective.com/balcony guide. I will of course put the link in the description so you can click straight through. All you need to do is just pop in your email address and I will send it straight to your inbox. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. I hope it was helpful and I hope it gave you some ideas in thinking about how you can start to create your own balcony garden, small garden, patio garden, courtyard garden. I hope it gave you some real good thoughts to just get started and figure out what is going to work in the space that you have. Regardless of the space you have, I promise you can do so much with it, and it is such a thrill to be able to harvest your own stuff off of the balcony, off a small space, when you know you've worked really, really hard to do it. I am going to be really focused on my balcony garden this year as well. I obviously have the allotment, but I am going to focus more on creating a medicinal herb garden up on the balcony, so be sure to follow me on Instagram. That's where I will be documenting that. You can find me there at the Slow Living Collective. You can also follow the podcast at the Slow Living Collective pod. You can also follow the website, which is theslowlivingcollective.com, and you can join my membership, which is theslowlivingcollective.substack.com. My membership there is all about slow, simple, seasonal living and does include gardening stuff as well, so be sure to check me out over there. You can join as either a free or paid member. Both are very welcome. So thank you again so much for listening to today's episode, and I will catch you in the next one.